I'd like to call the State Board of Education meeting to order, and please stand with me as we recite the pledge. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to welcome everyone here today. I'm glad you're interested in the State Board business. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. We'd like to welcome all of you here today in attendance, and to those of you who have joined us online. We thank you for your interest in this work of the State Board. I'd like to offer a welcome to two of our state representatives, Representative Huff and Representative Terrible. Thank you for being here with us today. So I'll begin with the State Board Chair report. As you may know, I'm not the State Board Chair. Rita Allison is our chair, and you've noticed she is not with us today, but she is with her family, as she has a grandson graduating from high school. So this is a special time as she can celebrate the milestone with her family. As we wrap up a school year, I cannot think of a busier time of year than closing out a school year. There's so many things, so many deadlines, so many events, so many things to celebrate, but it is a busy time of the year. I want to take a moment and reflect, not just as educators or students, but as people who believe in and support our schools. Because the success of a school year is not the work of one person or one group, it is the work of a school community, pulling together with purpose in heart. So to our parents, our grandparents, our neighbors, our business owners, our community leaders, thank you for your support this year. It does matter. Whether it's attending a school event, mentoring a student, donating supplies, or just simply cheering us on from the sidelines, your presence is felt. Our students thrive when the community stands with them. So to our teachers and our school staff, you've done more than teach. You've built relationships, you've modeled perseverance, and you reminded our children of their worth. The impact of your work goes far beyond any test score or any report card. And to our students, you are why we do what we do. You faced a year filled with both challenges and victories, but you've met it with heart. We're proud of how far you've come, and we're excited about where you're headed. So as summer begins, may it be a time of rest and renewal for all of us. Let's celebrate what we've accomplished, but let's also remember that education doesn't end when the school year does. It continues in our conversations, in the books we read, and the experiences we share with our families. Fred Rogers once said, often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. So as we close this chapter, let's look forward to what's next. Let's look forward with hope, with purpose, and with the same spirit of unity that brought us together this year. And with that, I want to take a moment of personal privilege to say a word of gratitude to Matthew Ferguson. As you are closing your time here at the department, but beginning something new, I think the State Board agrees with me and joins me in thanking you for your leadership and wishing you well and with the success that you deserve as a school superintendent. I can relate to your role both here at the department and as a district superintendent. I know how busy you've been, but I know how busy you're going to be. As a deputy superintendent, Matthew has led 11 vital offices focused on curriculum and instruction. That's a monumental responsibility that you carried out with vision and unwavering commitment. You brought to this role not only deep expertise, but a deep understanding of learning and growth. You had a unique ability to see the big picture of student success while also understanding the small daily decisions that keep us moving forward. Your work has touched every corner of our state and shaped the academic journeys of thousands of students. As you step into the role of superintendent in Darlington County, we know you will continue to lead with the same commitment to excellence. Darlington County is gaining a champion for students. So Matthew, thank you for the impact you've made here at the department on the lives of so many. Your legacy is strong, and we're excited to see all that you will accomplish in the next chapter. So congratulations and best wishes as you continue your journey in education. Thank you. So with that, Superintendent Weaver, I will turn it over to you for your report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Are we able to give you all a brief overview of the legislative session, some budget wins, some policy wins, and then I'm going to close with something that I find so exciting I can hardly contain myself to get to it. So we're going to power through all of the details to get to the big reveal. All right, so here let's start with our budget report. If this will allow me to advance the slide. I may have to have you all advance it remotely. There we go. Okay, so just a quick look at high-level budget numbers. So this is an update from a slide that I showed you all last year, updated with this year's information. You see that all in since 2018-2019, the General Assembly, and again, we're glad to have Representative Huff and Terabeel here today, the General Assembly has invested $1.95 billion in new state-only K-12 education investment since 2018-2019. The vast majority of that has gone to fund teacher raises. We are in the people business in education, and we know that the number one influencer of student learning and achievement is a great teacher in that classroom. And so taking care of our teachers, taking care of our people is really the most important thing that we can do. And so I'm proud to say that since 2018, 2019, we've seen a 52% increase here in South Carolina in the beginning teacher salary. Now, does that mean we're done? No. Do we have more work to do? Yes. But that is significant progress to celebrate, moving in the right direction. All right, can I get the next slide, please? Student success. So there were 3 categories that we broke our budget requests down into for the department: student success, teacher support, and safe schools. And so this is just a quick look at what was funded in the budget this year under student success. We know that literacy is the foundation on which all other learning is built, and so we were so grateful to see for our summer reading camps. And this is to expand the summer reading camps into earlier grades. We know that 3rd grade is the gateway at which a student absolutely must know how to read in order to go on and read to learn. But we know that we can see students struggling earlier in their journey than 3rd grade. And so this is about 2nd grade intervention, 1st grade intervention, and making sure that we're getting those students what they need before they hit that 3rd grade gateway. We also know that it matters to teachers and teacher time, saving teacher time, not forcing them to go out and curate a bunch of material. And so as a state, as a department, we have been working with the General Assembly to invest in high-quality instructional materials. Last year, we adopted HQIM, because we love a good acronym, in ELA. This year, the General Assembly has funded our HQIM adoption for new math curriculum that will align with our new prioritized math standards. Very excited about that work going forward. And then the Education Scholarship Trust Fund was rebooted and funded this year by the General Assembly. This really represents to me a model of funding education for what I call the ecosystem of the future. And many people have the wrong conception that this program is limited just to private schools, but we actually have over 30 of our traditional districts that are participating as providers in this program. And so I think that this is really one step forward in helping us tear down education silos and help students and families build customized education journeys that cross many different types of education delivery model. We don't care about the delivery model. We want a high quality education that gets that student what they need when they need it. So very excited for that. Looking at the next slide, teacher support. Again, we funded that $1,500 raise for teachers. That was $112 million in the state aid to classrooms line, and then a smaller amount to ensure that our special schools were able to accommodate that as well. We were very pleased to get funding for the second year of our strategic compensation pilot. We actually are evaluating the data now for the first year of that pilot and look forward to later this summer being able to roll out some very exciting news for teachers across the state whose schools have participated in this pilot to acknowledge the very incredible hard work that they have put in to move the needle for their students in ELA and math this last school year. And then, of course, the School Leadership Accelerator is a new program that we're going to be working to get off the ground under Lila's direction here at the department. We know that leadership in schools matter. And so very grateful to the General Assembly for coming to the table to help us fund that. And then the final category of budget that was funded is safe schools. We know that nothing else matters if our students and teachers aren't safe. And so the General Assembly has, for the third year now, invested another $20 million in non-recurring school facility safety upgrade funds. They have funded us to be able to continue to maintain the 15-year bus replacement cycle, again, ensuring that our students are safe on the road. Over half of our students ride a bus to and from school every day. And so I'm very grateful to the General Assembly for their continued commitment to make sure that we can do that with the very best vehicles in the very safest way possible. And then, of course, just recurring costs for the building here. There's a memo in front of you today just updating you all on some review and regulatory recommendations that will be coming before you in the coming months around how we streamline educator certification, some updates that need to be made based on policies that were passed this year by the General Assembly. But I'm really grateful for the work of our START task force, which was composed of educators, principals, teachers, superintendents from all across the state who came together to look for really actionable ideas that are already working here in South Carolina that can be scaled, or ideas that we see working in other states that we can implement here in South Carolina to continue to recruit, retain great teachers, elevate and celebrate the teaching profession. And so very grateful for Patrick Kelly, who's in the audience today, who served on that task force with us and was very gratified to see the General Assembly actually advance many of the ideas this year that were part of that START task force recommendation. So the temporary local eligibility certificates for non-certified teachers, the permanent educator certificate for our retired teachers, counting prior years of work experience for years of service. So this is a way that we can help support folks who maybe are interested in switching careers and becoming a teacher, and still give them credit for the professional and occupational experience that they have had outside of the classroom. And then there are still ideas that we're going to be looking to move this next year, such as the Interstate Mobility Compact. And then our START strategy number 4, which is around reliable data collection, that also advanced this year by transferring responsibility for the development of the education preparation program report cards here to the department. So we look forward to engaging in that work in collaboration with our partners at CHE and other agencies and universities around the state. But that was done via proviso. And then we also, in May of 2025, the District Accounting Systems Best Practices Committee come up with an acronym for that. I have struggled and failed. Filed their report to the General Assembly that was, again, in response to a proviso that was in last year's budget that really is looking at how we modernize and better manage all of the incredible amount of resources that are flowing through the department to local districts to support the learning of their students and to support the hard work of their teachers. And so the reporting or the recommendations from this committee really were about standardization and consistency of how districts are coding various funds. And so the department is going to be working on creating a financial accounting handbook and aligning definitions and codes, which sounds super exciting to all of the non-accountants in the room, I know, but is very important when it comes to accurate reporting and allocation of resources. The second big bucket of recommendations was around streamlining reporting. We know that there are multiple duplicative reports that districts have to file, not only to us, but to other agencies. And so we're looking at how we can streamline that, as well as get ahead of some of the financial challenges that districts have when perhaps they don't have the capacity to have a large finance team. We know that in many of our smaller districts, you might have a CFO who's also working on IT, who's also working on HR. And so how can we as a department come alongside those districts and really support them in detecting problems early before they become big problems? And then again, that gets into the last bucket of recommendations, which is really around district support, creating statewide mentorships for new finance professionals, and a boot camp for new finance staff to really elevate best practices and make sure that they understand the best practices that are platformed in that financial accounting handbook. So again, not maybe the most exciting of recommendations, but when it comes to being a great steward of the resources, that over $14 billion that I showed you on the first slide that's flowing through K-12 education in the course of a year. I think these are really important and practical recommendations. And then, of course, as we talk about the EdPrep report card, looking back to the great work that the START Task Force did in creating this profile of a prepared South Carolina educator and thinking through how we can really use this framework to guide our teacher-related practices and policies around accreditation for our EPPs, around professional development and evaluation standards. So there's a lot of work happening here at the department, a lot of work remaining to be done, but I think it's work that will really redound to the benefit not only of our education professionals, our teachers, but ultimately our students. And so with that, I'm going to transition into a report on some really exciting preliminary outcomes that we have seen related to what has been, as you all know, a huge push and priority since I became superintendent in 2023. And really, David, dating back to some early work that you all did with the Palmetto Literacy Project while you were still here at the Department of Education. So this is just a quick timeline of South Carolina's literacy journey through the science of reading. So 2014, the original Read to Succeed law is enacted. We have the system of multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, enacted in 2018. 2019 is when the Palmetto Literacy Project is born, and we had 250 schools that impacted. 21 and 22 is when you all first rolled out your letters training for that PLP cohort. So that was really the leading edge of putting the science of reading tools in our teachers' toolbox that we know that they need to teach children to be effective readers. So coming in 2023, we had the proviso that funded K-3 letters training for every K-3 teacher in the state, and I'm happy to say that we have over 20,000 K-3 teachers now who have either completed or in the process of completing that K-3 letters journey. And the anecdotal feedback that we have gotten from teachers on that is just astounding in terms of their sense of efficacy and empowerment in the classroom to address the challenges that their students are facing, that they now feel like they are equipped to be able to intervene and address. And then, of course, we had new ELA standards that rolled out that this state board passed concurrent with that. 2024, we had the Read to Succeed 2.0 reboot. We expanded letters into early childhood for our 4K CERDEP teachers. And then we also officially rolled out the new Science of Reading aligned high quality instructional materials, or HQIM. So I say all this to say that there has been a clear progression of policy levers and funding support that has been infused into this effort around early literacy in South Carolina. So now to report on what is the impact of this investment. If you look at 23-24 school year data, so that would have been for the prior school year, we had 57,000, just over 57,000 third graders who were tested. Of those 57,000 third graders who took the SC Ready test, 28% of them scored in the does not meet category. That is the lowest category of proficiency, and typically that would mean that a student is approximately 2 years behind grade level in their reading. So you see we had 16,000, just over 16,000 students, 28% scored in that does not meet category for 2023-24. What I am very excited to show you is that this year we cut that by 43%. Unbelievable. I can't even begin. If we had cut it by 10%, it would have been transformative. But this is, I'm talking about almost 7,000 children whose education journey has been fundamentally transformed because they are on grade level this year. So we tested more students this year and had only 16% of them who scored in that does not meet category. So are we satisfied with where we are? No. We still have more work to do. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to celebrate everyone who has been part of this incredible journey. I want to start with the teachers in the classroom who have poured their lives into these students, who have sat there and done the professional development. That letters training is no joke. 2 years of intensive training that our teachers have gone through, but you're seeing the results of it right here. We have district administrators who have made time for their teachers to do that training, and who have believed and who have pushed and who have coached their teachers as they implemented those high quality instructional materials. And then I'd be incredibly remiss if I didn't say a huge thank you to Dr. Ferguson, to Dr. Duggins, and the whole team here at the Department of Education who have just been relentless in aligning the support and the guidance that we as a department are pushing down into the field, into the classrooms, into the front lines here in South Carolina, because without that clear, consistent, relentless focus, the message gets lost. But I'm here to tell y'all the message has not gotten lost. We are on an incredible trajectory, and I am just so excited to celebrate this progress with you, and I'm so thankful for your partnership that has helped make this happen. So with that, let's give our teachers a round of applause. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Well, thank you, and that's great news. And I've long said that when we have an effective classroom teacher who is supported by a strong leader, we can overcome so many obstacles, and I think there's evidence of that happening. So thank you for that great report. So to our parliamentarian, do you have any comments for us?
Just briefly, and always a very hard report to follow when I get into Robert's Rules for the Busy Professional. That's what everyone really wants to applaud about, I'm sure. I just thought it would be helpful for us to have a friendly reminder for orderly discussions and deliberations amongst committees and the full board alike, that when we have someone presenting, if you wish to ask a question, please start by turning on your mic. And then speak into the microphone, Mr. Chair, and you'll be called on. Direct your question to the chair, and then allow the chair to direct the question to the presenter. Oftentimes the chair is trying to run things on schedule and can determine the best way to efficiently proceed as someone is presenting, and he's keeping us on track. And as I promised, no applause. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. So, and I will appreciate your grace today as we move through this agenda, my first time to do this. So now to public comment. We appreciate your interest in public education. Typically, the State Board will allow 5 minutes for your comments. However, if we have more than 6 people signed up for comment, I can ask for a motion to waive Rule of Governance BCBI to allow more speakers. Since we are hearing your comments for the first time, it is our policy to accept your comments as information. If we have any questions or need additional information, we will contact you at a later date, and we thank you for understanding that. So we have 7 people signed up today for public comment, and so I would entertain a motion to suspend our governance and allow 4 minutes for each individual who signed up for public comment. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we suspend our original and go with this new plan so that we can hear all 7 people.
Thank you. So we have Board Member Crimminger has made a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I
Johnson.
second.
Okay. Board Member Dingle has made a second. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. So we'll first start with Scarlett Brainerd from FABB. Scarlett here? Thank you. And so, Scarlett, if you'll wait just a second, we're going to start a timer, okay? You might want to pull that microphone. Okay. There you go. All right, we're ready.
Hello, my name is Scarlett Brainerd, and I am a student at Coosa Elementary School in Beaufort. I'm going into the 5th grade. I want to thank the superintendent and the board for allowing me to speak today. I wanted to come today because I believe strangers shouldn't control what children like me read. I believe parents, myself, and my librarian, Miss Cable, should decide what I read about. The books I want to read are about people of color, people from many backgrounds, fantasy, and graphic novels. Some people like other types of books, and they want to learn about different things. They should be able to read those things with the approval of their parents. We need to come together united and save books and our freedom to read. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Scarlett. Appreciate your comments. And next is Holly Whitner from Blythewood High School.
Hello, my name's Max Whitener, and I'm a rising senior at Blythewood High School. When we first heard about Free to Focus last August, there were many concerns about how this may negatively impact our students, from making communication between coaches and students harder, missing important reminders, and stressing students and parents for possible emergencies. The Blythewood Student Council vocalized these concerns at a Richland II School Board meeting in November in hopes to prevent the policy from taking effect. The board still passed it under the reasoning that they would lose funding if they did not. After the policy went into effect in January, the concerns from August were present and more, as Blythewood had to adapt to a policy not built to our environment. After a month, it felt like no one was following Free to Focus, and I wanted to prove the flaws through a survey. This survey was sent to all Blythewood students, asking questions like, do you follow Free to Focus at all times? Where 73.8% of responses were not always. I asked if there is an instance where a teacher or staff member asked you to take out your phone for an instructional purpose, and 50.8% of response was yes. In April, student councils from 4 of the 5 Richland II high schools went to the State House to meet our state legislators. We talked about the negative effects and asked them to remove the proviso and turn cell phone policies back to the schools. Unfortunately, the state did not review the proviso, so I've come here to ask the board to review the language in Free to Focus in a way to turn cell phone control back to schools. This all-out ban does not take into account the education apps and phones, the educational apps on phones, and does not allow high school students to practice time management skills. I don't want to go back to school in August and have everyone disregard the rules and be miserable because they lack the freedom on their phones. And on the topic of broad all-out policies, the attendance policy does more harm than good. It makes zero sense that a student in the top 10% of their class, with all A's since elementary school, should worry about failing a class because they were sick for 5 days, maxing out the amount of absences in their class. That was my best friend 2 years ago at the start of the attendance policy when it first went into effect. While there were some changes made in the cases of COVID, it stressed her out and it took forever to resolve. This policy is punishing good kids with good grades for taking time for health and life happenings. I had many doctor's appointments last year. Why was my health counted against me? When I have a 97 in the class, I think it's unreasonable that I'm supposed to make up seat time in a cafeteria for an hour with nothing to do because I've already finished my work. Seat time, I don't think seat time is a good metric for success. Please make an adjustment to allow for mastery exceptions. If a student has an A or higher, they should not be subject to a 5 absence rule. This would also encourage students to reach for higher school for that extra freedom. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can take what I've said into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we have any questions, we'll get with you. Thank you. Next is Lisa Ellis from Blythewood High School.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Lisa Ellis, and I'm here with a simple request. Let's focus our time and energy on what truly matters for South Carolina students. In recent months, much attention has gone to banning books in our schools, but respectfully, that focus is misplaced. Our students aren't falling behind because of access to reading material. They're falling behind because we're not adapting fast enough to meet their real needs. So today I urge you to redirect your attention to 3 specific areas that would make a meaningful difference for students and educators alike. Number 1, end seat time requirements. Seat time tells us how long a student sat in a chair, not how much they learned. We need to move towards competency-based models where progress is measured by mastery, not minutes. Give districts flexibility to innovate so learning can happen in and beyond the classroom at a pace that works for each student. Number 2, modernize the cell phone policy. Right now, most high school students can't use their phones at all during the school day, not even at lunch. But the real world requires them to manage technology responsibly. By allowing phone access during non-instructional times like lunch or class changes, we can teach digital responsibility instead of forcing total bans that do not reflect real life. Number 3, update high school credit requirements. Our credit system still reflects a world that no longer exists. We should be expanding opportunities for students to explore coding, financial literacy, AI, career and technical education, job shadowing, and internships. Let's give students the skills and pathways that actually match the demands of the 21st century. These are not radical ideas, they're reasonable steps forward. Let's spend less time policing bookshelves and more time building the kinds of schools where students feel seen, prepared, and inspired. Thank you for your time and your commitment to the future of South Carolina.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Taylor Huss from Blythewood High School.
Give me a second. Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Huss, and I am a recent graduate of Blythewood High School and a rising freshman at Clemson University, where I will be studying secondary education. As an aspiring educator and as a citizen of this great state, I am here to express my concern for the book banning policy in South Carolina. While I understand the importance of preventing our children from having access to inappropriate material, it is not the school's job or the government's job. It is the parent's job. On another note, this policy undermines the autonomy of teachers in South Carolina. Teachers in the state are already overly stressed. Regulating what books they can have in their classroom puts additional stress on them that they don't need. Private schools don't even have to follow the book banning policy, which is a rabbit hole I'm not going to jump into for the sake of time. I want to challenge you, before banning books, to actually read the books and see if they are in fact inappropriate. Please do not take one person's word for it. Do your research and please review them. I also want to ask if you have found any school that has actually been giving these books to children. As for me, I've not found a single teacher who has given inappropriate books to children. which goes to show that this policy is not protecting children, it's punishing teachers and spreading fear. I want you to know that we as a state are wasting our time and resources on policing children and punishing teachers when we could be using those same resources to improve our schools, make them safer, and increase teacher wages. South Carolina's public schools and all schools have a lot of potential, but policies like these are holding them back. I think it's time we take off the chains, loosen the noose, and allow our schools to move forward instead of being held back. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Taylor. And good to know that you're going in education. Next is Patrick Kelly from PSTA.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Superintendent, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Patrick Kelly, Director of Governmental Affairs for Palmetto State Teachers Association, also a high school government teacher. And before you embark on your extended summer vacation of having an entire month without a meeting, I want to encourage you today to do the same thing that great teachers do during their summer break. Reflect on what's happened in the year that you just completed and reorient for success in the coming year. And in doing that, I'm going to tell you what I'm reflecting on right now. Some of you know I'm a member of the National Assessment Governing Board, which is responsible for NAEP. And one of the NAEP statistics that has been resting heavy with me lately is our high school transcript study. We do this roughly every 10 years. And in 2019, the most recent time we did this, we looked at the high school transcripts of the sample of students in 12th grade that took NAEP nationally. And what we found is that the number of credits earned by those students from 2009 to 2019 went up from 27.2 to 28.1. Their average GPA went up from 3.0 to 3.11. These are exciting statistics. It should be a source of encouragement. But that same sample of students on NAEP in the same year were flat in science compared to their peers in 2009, and they decreased in achievement in math. Those don't align. And NAEP's not alone. ACT did a study in 2024 that found that the students between 2019 and 2021 had a higher GPA taking ACT, but a higher percentage of them needed remedial coursework when they hit college. There's a fundamental misalignment between our markers of student achievement, and that should cause us to reflect and reorient. And I would encourage this board to look at 3 policies under your control that could reorient the way we approach education in South Carolina. One you've already heard about, credit retrieval and the way we handle absences. I agree completely with what Max said. Seat time is antiquated, but showing up to work is not. And right now, credit retrieval, what districts are doing to allow students to make up absences, is not an effective tool to ensure that students are learning. 25% of our students are chronically absent, according to the Education Oversight Committee. That cannot persist because reports consistently show a correlation between student achievement and student attendance. But in this state, 15% of parents, according to the EOC, think that it is, quote, okay for students to frequently miss school. That's a problem, and I think credit retrieval is part of the story. The second policy I would encourage you to look at is credit recovery, which is allowed for in this board's 2019 uniform grading policy. It says credit recovery is a block of instruction to make up missed academic content, but the length and format of the credit recovery is up to local districts. I'm telling you that as a 20-year educator, credit recovery has shifted from what it was when I started teaching into something that students can complete in little as 24 hours by blindly clicking through an adaptive software platform. It is a misservice to our students, and it's got to change. The final thing is look at the UGP itself, because it's putting pressure on students in 2 directions. Number one, it's burning out our top students. If you have not read the book Never Enough, When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic by Jennifer Wallace, add it to your summer reading list. It's phenomenal, and I can tell you as a teacher and as a parent that it's doing the same thing, because in our state, every numeric grade a student earns from 50 to 100 has a different weighted component for GPA purposes. I watched my own child this year navigate pre-calculus. I was excited she got an A on a test. She was stressed because it wasn't a high enough A, because she needed to be higher to get a higher GPA. That's not right. We've got to change it. It's also causing districts to pass policies that inflate student grades. Because currently the range of points a student needs for an A, B, C, or D is a 10-point range. But the range for an F is 0 to 59. Now, I'm not a math teacher, but the impact of that is that mathematically it's unduly punitive to get a 0. So I would encourage you to look at that as well. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to talk to any of you about these issues.
Thank you, Patrick. Tinley Middleton, South Carolina Association of School Librarians.
Good afternoon. I'm Tenley Middleton. I have been a resident of South Carolina for almost 25 years. I have been a school librarian for 12 years. I am the current president-elect of the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. I have continuing concerns regarding Regulation 43.170. They are as follows: that it discourages reading of high-interest books, that it limits high school student access to information, that all decisions by the State Board of Ed will apply to every public school in the state, classroom, and school libraries, that we have limited information about the punitive aspects of the regulation, that there is no exception for academic need, literary merit, content taken as a whole, or author's intent, that there is no distinction between books meant for kindergartners and those meant for high school students, that it will have a detrimental impact on the preparedness of our students for college, that it requires classroom teachers to catalog their books or encourages teachers to remove classroom libraries entirely, that it will have an undetermined impact on advanced placement test preparation if high school students have limited access to important works of literature, that it will have a negative impact on teacher retention, and that the potential exists for one parent to wield a lot of censorship power. I think now is the time to look at amending this regulation. We would support amendments that require reading the book as a whole before removing it, and we would also require, we would also like to see amendments that allow for literary merit. Thank you so much for your time and service.
Thank you, Tinley. Lacey Lane with CAPE.
Good afternoon. My name is Lacey Lane. I'm a resident of Fort Mill. As a school counselor with 16 years experience and a parent of 2 school-aged children, I strongly urge you to amend Regulation 43.170 to ensure that our students' education reflects equitable access to information as well as respect for parental rights and local control. The current policy allows a single complaint to trigger statewide removal of a book, effectively allowing one person to override the rights of all other families, including mine. That's not parental rights, that's state-level censorship. Districts already offer opt-out systems to honor individual family values. Also, books are too often challenged based on isolated, out-of-context passages. The Instructional Materials Review Committee should be required to read the full work and consider its literary, artistic, and scientific merit when making such sweeping decisions. To ensure thoughtful, representative decisions, I would support the following amendments. Require the committee to read all challenged materials in full. Evaluate books for educational and artistic value. Include a diverse, locally representative committee, 5 parents, an administrator, a librarian, 3 teachers, 2 high school students. Permit districts with stronger existing policies to continue using them. Keep books accessible to students while under review. Now, these changes preserve both the rights of parents and the rights of students to read, learn, and think critically. I respectfully ask for your leadership in making these amendments to the regulation. Please push aside political agendas, misinformation, and requests from the loud and persistent minority to do their bidding. Please keep in mind your mission as a board to serve students, support teachers, empower parents, and engage in the community so that every student graduates prepared to reach their full potential. This regulation, as it stands, does harm for all of the stakeholders that you are charged to support. Please improve this regulation with the appropriate amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. And again, we'd like to thank all of you who provided public comment today. We now move into our State Board Education Committee reports. As you know, most of our mornings on State Board meeting days are spent in these committees in hopes that our meeting this afternoon runs smoothly. So the first committee report is the Policy and Legislation Committee. We met and heard one information item, and that was from Mika Childs, the Director of Office of Education, Choice, and Family Engagement, we heard a report about the charter schools in South Carolina. And there were no items placed on the consent agenda or for approval. So now I recognize Dr. Johnson to present the Educator Professions Committee report.
Thank you, Dr. Mathis. The Education Professions Committee met this morning and we approved 4 action items. South Carolina Certification Assessment Program 25-26 changes, the South Carolina Program Approval Standards for Special Education pre-kindergarten to grade 2, the Low Country Educator Alternative Pathway, known as LEAP, additional certification fields, the Teach Florence 1 revised admission criteria for world languages. These items were approved and placed on the consent agenda. There were no information items for the committee.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. The report stands as a motion made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the motion carries. I now recognize Ms. Lynn to present Standards Learning and Accountability Report.
The Standards Learning and Accountability Committee met and heard 2 action items. Report of recommendations from the 2024 Instructional Materials Review Panels for Computer Education Courses and the selection of State Textbook Depository. The action items were approved and moved to the consent agenda. The committee did not hear any information items.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. The report stands as a motion made from the committee. It does not require a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the motion carries. There was no meeting of the Instructional Materials Review Committee this month. So I now move to recognize Ms. Kriminger to present the Educator Licensure Committee report.
Thank you, Chair Mathis. The Educator Licensure Committee heard 7 cases this morning. We approved 1 initial certification and denied 1 initial certification, approved 1 public reprimand, and 4 suspensions. These matters were ratified by the full board. And a special thank you to Mr. Gunner and Ms. Berg for all of the hard work in getting these cases together for us prior to the meeting this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kriminger. And additionally, the full board ratified all actions taken by the ELC committee today. The full board Education Licensure Committee met and we heard 2 cases resulting in 1 order of revocation and 1 order of permanent revocation today. So that is the report from that committee. And additionally, the full board ratified all actions taken by the ELC committee. Now we move into our consent agenda. The consent agenda has been distributed. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Dr. Johnson has made a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Hanley.
Dr. Hanley seconded the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed by a like sign? The motion carries. Now we move into our board education reports, and we do not have any items for approval, but we do have 4 information items. And so the first is the Free to Focus implementation update, and Dr. Van Holden.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's my pleasure to be with you this afternoon to talk about the Free to Focus policies that are in place across the state of South Carolina. We'll be giving a brief background on the history of those policies. We're going to be talking about the initial analysis of the implementation of the policies in our districts and schools, and talking about next steps with that analysis as well. Starting about 9 months ago, we began developing our agency's research agenda. And broadly, that agenda now focuses on evidence-based practices, which you've heard a little bit about already today, the impacts of policies and practices, as well as communicating data-informed actionable recommendations to policymakers and leaders, including yourselves today. And our focus here is on one specific policy, which is our Free to Focus policies that date back to the proviso that came into play last summer, the State Board of Education model policy, which went into play, came into place September 3rd, 2024, so 9 months ago today, as well as January 2025, which is when districts were required to begin their implementation. As part of our initial analysis, and I say initial as a key part of this, as part of our initial analysis of the Free to Focus policies, we engaged educators on their perceptions of a variety of issues: academics, behavior, school climate issues, as well as cell phones and personal electronic devices. That last bullet is the key part that I'm here to talk to you about today as we talk about the results from those surveys. And we're going to dig a little bit more into the results here, but on a superficial level, a very high level, we wanted to give you some context for how many educators participated in the surveys that we administered. So we had a little bit more than 9,000 responses on both the winter and the spring surveys. And one thing we see from the administration that we conducted in December is the percentage of classroom teachers who reported that their students are free to focus on learning during the school day was 82.9%. So pre-full implementation, it was 82.9%. In our most recent round of analysis here, we're at 85.9%. And that tells you a little bit about what's going on, but we want to dig a little bit more deeply into that information and get into one of the questions that I know a lot of folks have, which is about enforcement of the policies related to the cell phones and personal electronic devices. So one of the questions that we asked our educators was, is the policy enforced at your school? Agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And so we try to control for the variable of, is the policy being enforced or is it not being enforced? So on our winter survey, we asked educators the question, again, to what degree are your students free to focus on instruction, or are your students able to focus on instruction? And when we looked at and controlled for the variable of cell phone policy enforcement, you can see the results of that on the left and on the right are changed there based off of the degree to which the teachers perceive the policy being enforced. When the teachers perceived the policy was not enforced consistently at their school, 47.1% agreed that their students were free to focus on instruction, free to focus on learning during the school day. However, when the policy was enforced, 92.1% of teachers agreed that their students were free to focus. We looked at that same information in the spring, our most recent survey results. 51.9% of classroom teachers said their students were free to focus when the policy was not enforced, but 93% of classroom teachers said their students were free to focus when the policy was enforced. So we're looking at a key issue here of, is the policy not only passed at the local district level, but is it being enforced at the school and classroom level? We controlled for that same variable looking at a variety of behaviors present in the school. So we surveyed teachers on everything that you see listed on the board in front of you. And we controlled for the variable of, is the cell phone policy enforced? When teachers perceived that the policy was enforced, they were also less likely to perceive the other behaviors were student conduct issues at their school. That was true on every behavior that we asked teachers about. That was true on the winter survey, and it was also true on the spring survey. On every single behavior that we saw, when teachers believe and perceive that policy is being enforced, we're seeing a decrease in their perception that other behaviors are student conduct issues at their school. We had 3,500 responses. We had 3 different open-ended questions to all educators. We had 3,500 responses on one question, 3,000 responses on another, and 1,500 on the final question about cell phones and personal electronic devices. And we're in the process of analyzing that and looking for trends and themes that can tell us more about how our educators perceive the Free to Focus policies and their implementation here throughout our state. And we see a variety of things already, but 3 stood out that I'll include here because they represent some of the key parts that we've seen so far, which is we do see in the analysis that many teachers expressed thankfulness that the state led the way on that part and established an overall policy, an overall mandate that this was going to occur. And we see a quote in front of you from one of our classroom teachers here. On the next slide, we see a similar quote talking about The state's leadership of this piece, making enforcement easier, ensuring consistency, and also the positive feelings that the teacher had about the overall school year. And then a similar quote, which actually is a combination of two different quotes from that teacher from two different questions, but both hit on the same overall theme, which is that when we're seeing clear communication and we're seeing enforcement of the cell phone policy, that we're seeing more focus and more engagement. Now, of course, there's other folks and other responses that are there. We're looking at specific feedback around consistency of implementation. That's been a big thing that we've seen in those open-ended responses, and people wanting to ensure that it's happening in all classrooms, in all schools, and seeing variations in outcomes based on that, which is part of what we want to continue to study. Perceptions are just one part of this story, and we've built our research agenda on having comprehensive data that's going to inform action and inform policies here at the state level. So we've actually already engaged with several scholars nationally to begin that research that's going to take us beyond just that survey input that we already have available that's helping us understand the current perceptions of folks right now on the ground, into connecting those policies, connecting implementation into what is happening with students' academic and behavioral outcomes. So we've started a partnership with three scholars actually, that are part of the Phones in Focus initiative. So one of them is Angela Duckworth, who's a former educator, former K-12 educator, who now works for the University of Pennsylvania. She's the author of The Passion of Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. I believe her TED Talk has more than 15 million views on that topic, and she's also a MacArthur Fellow. I know there's a lot of smart people in the room and a lot of smart people in the world, but a MacArthur Fellow is somebody who's been awarded what's called a Genius Grant. So we're very excited to have somebody of that caliber working with us, as well as the economists that she has on board from Stanford. And we're working with them on educator perceptions, looking at school rules, looking at district policies, and connecting school rules, district policies, educator perceptions to students' academic outcomes as well as behavioral outcomes that we're seeing in trend data as we look at 23-24 information and 24-25 information. We're also partnering with a scholar named David Figlio from Rochester, who's currently a visiting scholar at Hoover, and he's actually working with us to help us better understand the degree to which these policies are being enforced by looking at the actual cell phone data that's taking place and seeing, did we see changes in cell phone use in terms of the data that's being provided from different groups and different businesses, to see, are we seeing a decline in that cell phone use year over year? And we do see evidence of decline, or we see evidence of the data being stable across the years. Are we able to connect that to changes in students' academic outcomes or behavioral outcomes? So again, we've conducted two rounds of surveys already and done 2 rounds of analysis on those surveys to better understand educator perceptions of the Free to Focus policies. And initial findings indicate some promise, right? They're telling us that we are seeing that when a policy is enforced, or when teachers perceive that a policy is enforced, they're more likely to perceive their students are able to focus on learning during the school day. They also perceive that they're less likely to see other specific behaviors as student conduct issues at their school. However, we want to continue that analysis and continue digging more deeply into the policy impacts and come back and share that information with policymakers and leaders within the agency as well to better inform our work as we work to shape policies and practices around the state and put our students and educators in the best position to learn and optimize results.
Thank you, Dr. Holden.
No problem.
Are there any questions for Dr. Holden?
I have a question.
Dr. Dingle?
Have you all considered surveys for students to get the perception of what the students are saying?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, absolutely. That's something that came up in one of our roundtable discussions just last month, and something in my previous work at a school district we did as well. And we found ways to engage with students. One thing we're conscious about here is trying to figure out how to engage with students in a way that doesn't take further time away from instruction. So we currently do as part of our state accountability, there's an education oversight committee, school climate survey, and we engage students through that part. And what we want to figure out a way to do is, how do we ask students about this in a way that's not going to intrude upon that classroom time, but still give us that student voice. So we're considering that part of it and how we might be able to implement that with some fidelity across the state. It's a great question and one we've been considering internally. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. Other questions?
Mr. Chair, one of the things that we had asked on this survey that was concerning to several board members was the bell-to-bell implementation and the classroom instruction. Were there any questions? It was hard to read everything. Was there any questions related to that on the survey?
So we asked questions specifically as we have their board policies. We've been looking at their board policies to analyze what does their board policy say about the implementation, and then connecting that. Our goal is to take those policies that are in place and connect that to the perceptions at the district level to see if we're seeing differences there, because every board policy had those pieces in there. We did ask questions about, with your policy that's in place, how are students storing their devices? Where are they expected to be kept? Those types of things. And then we're using the knowledge that we already have that we've already collected on the district policies. We're also working to collect more information on the school rules, because we know there can be differences there or in different interpretations at the school level to see what is actually in place at the school level and how is it being communicated to students and to teachers in cases where there may be some variation there. So that's a part of an analysis we're trying to build into some separate pieces.
Thank you. And I noticed from your survey was the 9,000 plus, I think. Was that all teachers, or were there any administrators or other staff involved in that survey?
So the overwhelming majority are teachers. I don't have that count in front of me. But in both the winter and in the spring survey, most were teachers. But we did have a role that was filtered there to allow for non-certified staff, certified staff who are not teaching students, and administrators as well. And so when on the graphs that you saw there, those were all filtered for classroom teachers to focus on their responses there. But we do have the results available with the other groups as well.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Sure.
Is there a process that this will be shared with superintendents this summer, the results of this?
Do we have plans?
Yes. So we actually presented to superintendents just a few weeks ago at their roundtable, which is where the idea about one of the ways that the survey of students came up as well. And we intend to share the results in a variety of formats, working with our communications team, developing one-pagers, developing PowerPoints, trying to make sure the information is being shared. One part we're especially excited about is when these research results come back that include a little bit more data in them, trying to pair those to say this is the type of thing that we're seeing. We got some promising ones back that I can't share yet from one of our research partners talking about specific policies, bell-to-bell versus different breaks in the day, and the effectiveness of each one. And we're really excited about incorporating that type of information into presentations that we do give to those audiences as they work to better shape the outcomes of their schools and districts.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, one other question. Am I correct in understanding that you don't yet have the data on implementation? Like, I would be very interested to know what the differences in schools that have like the personal lockers for the phone versus students that are expected to just, I guess, keep them in their backpacks or in the lockers. Are you working on those numbers, or do we have them as of today?
Go ahead.
So the answer to that is multi-phase. So some of the data we're collecting is not available yet. So we're looking at test scores, grades, attendance, behavior. We still have districts that are wrapping up now, so we wait until the data collection is finalized there in the next few weeks for the 24-25 school year. We're then going to be aggregating that data and looking at that through the lens of the policies and rules that are in place. We're also in the process of collecting more information on the school rules. That's going to be that's ongoing right now and should wrap up, I believe, in the first week of July. So we can add a different lens to it as well and look beyond just what the policy said and what the school rules said. So yes, that's something we're trying to do in our analysis, and part of what the Phones in Focus initiative was doing as well was looking specifically at school level implementation and how information was being stored, and we're excited to pair that data they've collected with our data as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your work, and thank you for trying to implement the feedback. I know you got probably overwhelmed with a deluge of different ideas.
And they're all, it's great to have that information. What we're trying to do now is aggregate that and synthesize it so we can take all of the responses that we received and aggregate them in a way that we can actually do something with them and make them actionable to better inform what we're doing here.
Great. And I think that's important. Mr. Harrington?
One of the most credible arguments that I've heard from students, as well as leadership principals and so forth, is that not having use of the telephone during non-class times. I know when we were talking about implementing this, we were thinking about the value of improving interpersonal relationships between the students and the faculty. Is there any way of measuring that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. One, we did ask about, has the policy had a positive impact on school climate? We've also, of course, got the surveys that are going to be coming back from classroom teachers, from the Education Oversight Committee School Climate Survey, which tell us we have the 23-24 results and historical results going back decades there, but we've also got this year's results, and we can look for changes there to tell us more about, on specific questions, how are students getting along, how are students getting along with each other, with teachers, how are students interacting, and seeing if we have some differences there. And of course, we can aggregate that at the school and district level, and again, we can compare that to what policies and rules are in place and see, are we seeing changes year over year with the policy implementation. I'll be honest, we have a lot of economists that are very excited about the work we're doing, because we have an event that's occurred where we have a new policy that's in place and we have before and after data. And that's the type of analysis they're very excited about, whether it relates to school climate or it relates to academic outcomes or behavioral data. They're very interested in topics and concepts where we have data from a before and after of an implementation of a policy. And that's one of the things we're excited to answer with them and bring back to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Holden. I know this is a lot to disaggregate, and because we do want an actionable plan with that. And I think also a group that would be interested in hearing once all of your information is there are our school boards, because they do set the policies. So I think they should, it would be good for them to have that information as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions for Dr. Holden, we will move to Philip Cease, who will give us a report on the 2025 General Assembly legislative session. Come wow us.
Thank you, Dr. Mathis, Superintendent Weaver, and board members. I tried to get some fireworks set off when I walked up here, but apparently that's not in the budget. So you'll just have to deal with the PowerPoint presentation. So the good news is the superintendent already covered some of the new laws I'm going to, so this won't take quite as long. But ultimately, what I want y'all to get out of this presentation is what y'all will be taking up, hopefully in August. Some of these require state board actions of some shape, form, or fashion. So just to kind of put it on your radar so y'all can enjoy your break in July and then come back in August ready to hopefully adopt some of these policies. So new laws. We're just going to go in numerical order. The superintendent already covered S62, which was the update to the Education Scholarship Trust Fund. The trustee was inserted to manage funds, and then it increases the individual scholarship amounts from $6,000 to $7,500. And then once the program's fully implemented, it will cap out at 500% of poverty, which will happen next year. Currently, that limit is at 300%, and going forward, there's a priority window for those families that fall in that 300% of poverty window. We are required to develop model guidelines for district transfer policies, which we're currently working on. Good news for y'all, there's no state board action required in this law for you. That's not the case in S77, which is the school board streaming bill that was passed. This requires school districts, including charter schools, to live stream and record all school board meetings. There will be a model policy that will come before y'all to adopt in August. We will work with stakeholders when we're drafting that. But school districts have to adopt that policy within 3 months of your adoption. S78, the work experience credit for educators. This allows educators to get years of experience on their certificate, not in retirement, based on previous work experience in or related to the content field. So if I am a chemistry teacher, I can't add years of experience as a truck driver. But if I worked in a lab or was a chemist, I could. Again, this only applies to the teacher salary schedule, not towards retirement. No state board action required in this one. S79, non-certified teacher pilot program. This allows districts to hire up to 10% of non-certified staff for their entire teaching staff. It does not include work-based career and tech ed teachers. This pilot will end in 2030 unless it's extended by the legislature, and then y'all will have guidelines to approve for this pilot program. 269, this does not sit under the department directly. It is actually under SLED, but it does involve schools, which is why I'm putting it in front of you today. This allows public school districts and charter schools to essentially have their own security businesses. The law has requirements that they must get approval from SLED on certain areas and talks about professional development for the school security officers employed by the district. No actions for y'all to take there. And then S425 is just a codification of a proviso that's been in law over the past couple of years. That's 1.67. This deals with students in poverty and school breakfast and lunches. This gets a full slide because it's a big one. This was Chair Lady Erickson's. She has worked on this legislation for the past 3 years. It finally passed this year. Among other things, it requires districts to implement sick leave banks, establishes a lifetime certificate for retired educators, updates the teacher contract and class assignment procedures to give teachers more information on what they will be making and where exactly they will be teaching, and then increases the number of PD days from 3 to 4 and requires 2 of those days to be used to prepare for the upcoming school year. Additionally, and this is a big one, districts must award credit for educator certificate renewal based on successful completion of professional development. Amy Hipp and her folks are working hard on a couple of these laws, but this is one of them that they are working on. The state board is not required to take any action under S3169. 2 more, excused school absences. This came about because there were districts that were not giving excused school absences for participation in FFA or 4-H programs. This would allow students to take up to 10 days per school year. They have to complete any classwork they missed. And then 3862, charter school enrollment preferences. This allows charter schools to set aside 10% of enrollment for priority to active duty military children. They can't go above 10%, and they're not required to do that, but they may. And no state board action are required on any of these 2 bills or laws. A budget update, which superintendent covered the funding lines, so I'm not going to get into a lot of detail there. Under provisos on the right-hand side, 1.3, that is the state aid to classroom proviso formula, which is how the department distributes the funds. Under that proviso, students are assigned weights. The virtual charter school weight for students was dropped from 0.65 to 0.5, and then Revenue and Fiscal Affairs was charged with reviewing, weighting, and reporting to the General Assembly any suggested changes by December 1st of 2025. One that y'all will be taking up in August is the school nurse unencumbered time proviso. So in 2023, I believe it was January, you adopted a unencumbered time policy that was to be adopted by districts statewide. The legislature, through proviso, is, I would say, asking, more of requiring that policy to be updated to include school nurses. Under that, we will work with groups to make sure their concerns are heard on that. And then charter school contracts, y'all heard from Ms. Childs this morning kind of on the reason behind this. If an institution of higher education is going to cease to operate, this kind of sets up the procedure that the State Department will follow in ensuring that that charter school authorizer is closed in a effective manner and ensures that schools under that authorizer have a chance to transfer their charters to a different authorizer. Any questions on any of that? I know I hit a lot.
Any questions for Philip? I would say, Philip, that's a lot.
Right. Which is why I'm giving you July to digest it.
Right. So I think it would be helpful if, Rebecca, if we could get the policies sent to us in the next few weeks. That would give us some time to review that before we come back in August, especially if there are policies we're going to vote on in August. We could do our reading and make sure we understand.
Right.
Because that is a lot to take in.
The goal is to get you all those sooner rather than later so you can review them.
Correct.
And that is a lot right now. Under all those bills, there were 3 anticipated actions that y'all will take in August, which are the model live streaming policy under S77, the guidelines for non-certified teacher pilot under S79, and then the revising and adopting the unencumbered policy for school nurses under 1.120. I will say that is the plan to do all those. I have started conversations, and those of us that are working on this have started conversations with groups that will be interested. So the plan is to bring all of these in August. If one is, we're still trying to work through, the intent is not to force it through in August. So if we need some more time, we'll take it.
Any questions for Mr. Cease? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Cathcart is going to report to us on the upcoming State Board of Education regulatory review. That sounds interesting.
Good afternoon, y'all. My favorite subject, regulations. So Philip Cease kind of gave you all an idea of some bills that have moved through, and as a result, there are model guidelines that need to be put in place. We also have to update some regulations. So there are kind of three reasons we ought to update and review our regulations. The first is there's a legislative mandate. So the legislature requires that every 5 years we look over our regulations and ensure that they are kind of up to snuff, that the processes are proper, and that they're still aligned with state law and or are still useful or needed in this case. So we have done that specifically with Article 3. I believe there's a memo in front of you. So these deal primarily with educator certification. And we'll kind of run these on a 5-year cycle. So each year, new regulations will be above, and we'll kind of present a report of ones that we find that are either not being used anymore, might need to be amended, streamlined, or otherwise might need to remain. So you'll notice in your packet 200 recommendations. One of those is recently passed and updated, so no need for change there. The second reason for updating these specifically is, as was mentioned earlier in the superintendent's report, the START report, which kind of gave us some ideas on how we can better support educators, support our certification process, and kind of streamline our processes. And then third is, as I kind of mentioned earlier, legislative actions, so new bills that have updated language. Now we've got to align our regulations. Kind of as a reminder, in the hierarchy you have Constitution, law, and then you have regulations. And so if the law changes, we also have to change our regulations. So there's a number of recommendations before you. I won't read them all out loud, but would love, if you have any questions about them, either now or in the future, would love to kind of talk about those a little bit further. But just kind of as a reminder, before these regulations are introduced, they'll go out, there'll be drafting notices sent out, 30 days notice. We'll have 2 readings before this board. So there's certainly a lot of time and effort that we put into it before the final vote is taken. What I think is also kind of interesting in this, there will be some, if this board kind of agrees, that we would recommend deleting. Part of that is there are some that are no longer necessary. There are others, some sub-regulations in particular, that can be combined into one regulation and just kind of make it a little bit easier. So if someone's doing research trying to figure out, well, where do I fit in, they don't have to click 5 different tabs on our website to figure out what makes sense, and will instead be in one regulation. And so just kind of for the impact of these recommendations, it would amend 7 regulations, eliminate or consolidate 6 regulations. That would be about 37% of our the regulations currently reviewed, about 8% of the regulations that the state board has in total. I think that's important in particular. The General Assembly has made it clear they want agencies and boards to continue to review regulations, to streamline when they can, and to eliminate those which are redundant. And so this is just kind of us complying with the General Assembly's request to make it simpler, make their job a little bit easier, and have fewer regulations on the books that are no longer necessary. It also streamlines our certification process, makes it easier for educators to understand what they need to go through, and then finally aligns us, most importantly, I think, with state law, and also with the START recommendations to really support educators in the field. I'm at this point open for any questions y'all may have.
Are there any questions for Robert? Okay, thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And finally, our academic update, Matthew Ferguson.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is my last time up here, and David joked earlier that I'm going to be busy, but after those 2 presentations, I think you are going to be busy. So good luck with that when I am gone. So I know we've talked already today about what's working, especially around early literacy gains that Superintendent Weaver highlighted earlier. And I just wanted to take a moment to start by emphasizing that those did not happen by mistake. Those are the result of a system that has become more aligned in standards, more aligned in instructional materials, more aligned in assessments and professional learning. And when we create that kind of coherence, we don't just support teachers, we get better outcomes for kids. And today I want to give you a couple of updates on work that is going on over this summer that is going to extend that, attempt that coherence, alignment, and clarity of mission beyond just literacy. And so the first that I want to talk about is the work that we have been doing for almost 5 years. Superintendent Weaver and I started on this path around stackable credentials at the Education Oversight Committee nearly 5 years ago, and it has finally come to fruition, and the Education Oversight Committee will consider that framework next Monday. And if approved, that is going to create a new system of credential work for our accountability system that really works at bringing into alignment what credentials we are offering in our CTE centers and making sure that those credentials have value in the marketplace. And so the work started with the SREB. It included the CCWD and the EOC, all the acronym soup that is Columbia. And we have really been working to make sure that our credential system gives students a pathway that builds real skills that have value in the workplace. And it also helps districts prioritize what CTE centers should be offering in their communities to say that in Darlington County and the PD, these are the jobs that are most valuable there. Those jobs are similar in some cases to Charleston's, but they're also very different than Charleston's in other cases. And so it helps provide a way for districts to say, this is what our workforce needs are in our region, and how do we build systems in our K-12 schools that are aligned to those workforce needs. And it also provides families and students a clear pathway for, if I want to be a doctor, what does that look like when I'm in K-12? It could look like that when I'm in 10th grade, I get a CPR certification, and when I'm in 11th grade and 12th grade, I finish my CNA, and I go on to be an RN, and then I go get my medical degree, and that is probably not all right because I am not that kind of doctor, but I think that's how it works. But it's an attempt to make, in a very clear way, that pathway available to kids who may not come from medical backgrounds, and they can go to a one-pager and see, this is what it looks like when I'm in K-12, when I'm in a 2-year college, a 4-year college, or a graduate school. And so we'll begin implementing that new stackable credential framework for students that are entering their freshman high school year next fall. And that work will help guide the CTE work, the career and technical education work across the state, and bring that into greater alignment. The next piece that I want to talk to you about is what we are doing with ELA and science benchmarking. So as y'all all realize, we have new ELA standards. We have implemented those standards and had a new test. And so starting next week, we will begin the formal benchmarking process and the psychometric processes that go into how do we create the cut scores, how do we create what is the difference between a student who does not meet approaches, meeting expectations and exceeding expectations. And how that process works is that we bring together educators from all over South Carolina to a ballroom in Columbia, and we spend a whole week looking at the test that kids actually took and working through the process to say, this is how kids walk through the door between being does not meet, does not met, into approaches. This is the doorway to where Dr. Hanley was approaching standard. If he got this one more question right, that's how we would know he was in the meets expectations category. And then what we also do, which seeing Patrick in here is a good reminder, is we also look at, if we were to implement those cut scores, how does that compare to NAEP? Where are we setting our benchmarks as it compares to NAEP? Because what we want to make sure is that we are not setting those expectations so low and selling our children short like so many states do, and they say a child is meeting expectations, but they really don't know anything to make them valuable in the marketplace. And so we want to make sure that we are appropriately rigorous, and one way that South Carolina does that is a benchmark against NAEP cut scores. And I want to emphasize that this isn't just technical work. It's the foundation for strong instructional decisions, better assessments, and smarter supports for students, because the work that will happen in that ballroom with teachers from all across South Carolina starting next week will drive the conversations that we are having in these rooms for the next 7 years, perhaps, to say, these kids met the mark, they're on grade level, or these kids didn't, and what do we specifically need to build them up so that they are being successful. And I'm going to close the day by really going back to where we started, which is literacy. What is happening in K-12, not K-12, I can't read my own notes. What is happening in K-2 literacy isn't magic. It is system work. We are aligned in our standards to the science of reading. We have provided teachers with high-quality professional development and instructional materials. We've also provided them high-quality coaching, and we've supported them with the assessments and the professional learning that actually reinforce what matters most. And so that same level of alignment is now guiding our work in math, in science, and career readiness. And because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether a student is writing an essay, doing a multi-system problem in math, or earning a nationally recognized credential, it's our job to make sure that the path is clear, the expectations are high, and that the support is real. So I want to thank you as I leave for the work that I know that you will continue to do at your desk to make sure that the work across the state is aligned and that the expectations are high and that our students are meeting them. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. I do have one. Maybe you could go back to the first presentation. Could you explain for all of us what it means by stackable credentials? Could you define that a little bit?
Thank you, Dr. Mathis. So a stackable credential right now, what happens is that if a student gets an OSHA 10 training and they take that OSHA 10 class, they get that credential, and if they have completed 3 courses, they get the check mark of being career ready. They are a completer in CTE. What this does is it says that not all credentials are created equal. So an OSHA 10 is really that entry-level certification that helps you a little bit but doesn't make you career ready. There are other credentials that have a CNA. If you have a CNA, you can leave high school and get a job that makes a living wage in South Carolina. Welding certificates are another example. You can have an OSHA 10, it'll get you a job at a manufacturer. Perhaps it'll help you stand out. But if you have that OSHA 10 plus a welding certificate, you can get a job almost anywhere in South Carolina. And so what we are saying through the system is we're helping identify what level the different certifications have, recognizing that they're not all created equal, and then also incentivizing districts to provide children the opportunity to stack those lesser valued credentials on top of each other so that they get towards what real career readiness is.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Ferguson?
I
Yes,
have
sir.
one question, please. Dr. Ferguson, we're seeing proof that letters is working, significant improvement in the public schools. Do we provide any oversight or any encouragement for charter schools to follow suit?
Yes, sir. So our charter schools are included in the ability to take the letters training, and they are included in those numbers. So if you are a K-3 teacher in public K-12 schools, you are offered the opportunity to take letters.
Are they taking advantage of it as much as the public schools are?
Yes, sir. There are some folks who, yes, sir. I'm just going to say yes, sir. Not everybody's willing all the time, but they are taking advantage of it. And charter schools and some traditional schools were very much about the science of reading early on through the Orton Gillingham training, et cetera.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Ferguson? We don't need to let him off the hook easy on his last. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Ferguson. So as we move into other business, I'd like to recognize Abby Duggins. Abby, best of luck to you as our new deputy. I think from what I just heard, Dr. Ferguson has left you a long laundry list of things to focus on, so best of luck. Just a reminder that we do not have a meeting in July, but we will, I'm sure the staff will be in touch with any information that we need. Is there any other business to share for the good of the order? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Dr. Dingle. Is there a second?
Grimminger, second.
Motion by Board Member Crimminger. All in favor with aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.